It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Why do we sit down when all should be standing? And why do we back down at the critical moment, like running away from the waves of the ocean? We head for the hills with the high tide approaching, as sand slips away from the castle. When it's time to stand upright, why do we falter, like placing our freedom on the sacrificial altar? We hold tight
Jordan Page. You know, it's the release of his new album, Liberty. It couldn't come at a more opportune moment. As you know, today we have towards the top of the page of Freedom's Phoenix, you'll have this one young girl, she's probably 14 or something, that she was kind of the spark as she was talking about the people that were rebelling against their government in Tunisia, saying, I'm going down to the square here in Cairo and on the 5th of January, and, who's going with me? And she went down, and, she's there with like 3 other guys and a bunch of police vans, pounding on them and so on. Comes back, hey, man, where are you guys at? I'm going again. Don't sit there and tell me what a man you are. Come down and, help protect this little girl. The shot heard round the world. There is you want worldwide government? Let me tell you what happens. You get worldwide lovolution, and giving a voice to it. If you're going to have a lovolution, you always have a couple things. Dr. Paul said this. He goes, you're going to have youth and you're going to have music. Well, we got both in Jordan Page. Jordan, I got you there?
You got me, Ernie.
I want to get this out real quick. Congratulations. You just had your 3rd child. You had 2 little boys. Now you got a little girl, do you not?
We do indeed, and she's beautiful.
Of course they all. I knew you guys make pretty babies anyway. That gives you some kind of an investment in this thing. I mean, you got little boys and a little girl and a beautiful wife, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm invested. Tell me about your album, what it says, what it means, and you just released it. So how's that going?
Well, that's several questions. Let me tackle them all. First of all, you're absolutely right that my family is the number one thing that's got me in the struggle to restore the republic and regain our freedom. It's not until we have something to lose that we start to understand what we have and that it's worth fighting for. My kids have definitely been a huge motivating factor in my life. So you're absolutely right about that. The album Liberty is just been released this past week. It's on iTunes, on CD Baby. It's on websites and whatnot. It's 15 songs of just Washington D.C. ass kicking.
You have my support.
I know I do, buddy. I know I always have. You've been a huge supporter of me, and there's actually a song. You know this already, but for your listeners, there's a song that I actually wrote for my boys before our little girl was conceived, called "The Message of Freedom." And you've always been a big inspiration to me since I've known you. And you have that catchphrase, "Freedom's the answer. What's the question?" And it really inspired the chorus of that song. And so you've been definitely been a force in my development as a young patriot.
Well, I guess that means I got to get me a bunch of albums, man. We're going to be giving
out
have to. Premiums here on Freedom's Phoenix. We'll get Sierra hooking up with you. We'll work it out, when we get some, and we'll take care of that. But, the one thing that I'm really have yet to get a copy of the album. So, we need to get those real quick so I can start playing them here on the show. What are some, out of 15, what's the main theme? What are you talking about?
Well, I explore, all the different, connotations to this idea of freedom and liberty. In a political sense, in a spiritual sense, in a physical sense. I explore it like from a spiritual sense. From the first track to the last track. The first track is called Dragons, and it's kind of a hard rock song that is sort of like a new modern take on the Book of Revelation, and kind of it tells the history of what's to come, and just how this whole scheme to enslave the free peoples of the world is coming about. And from that song all the way to the very last song, which is actually a duet with my beautiful wife Mary, it's called Until the Race is Run, and it's more about, spiritual freedom and kind of just being open to the greater truths in life. I've got songs, and I've got a song about the chemtrails phenomenon called Trails. I took three of my songs from the Revolution EP, Listen, Reckoning, and Here, There, and Everywhere, and redid those with full band, so they finally gotten their due. And Listen's my, anti-war anthem, my anti-establishment anthem, and Reckoning talks about, the global elite, wealthy, the line is, they're born of wealth and nursed by greed, but now we've come to set it right, but can't you see the future? The day is turning quickly into night. So it's like we know that everything's kind of falling apart, and yet, it's time for a reckoning. It's time for us to turn this thing around, and we have to stand together or we're all going to fall.
Well, tell me how, if it's on iTunes and so on, I'm not as tech savvy as, everybody else I know on the planet, but go ahead and if they wanted to download some of your songs, how do they do that?
Well, the first thing they can do is go to my online distribution site, which is cdbaby.com/Jordan Page 4. This is the fourth CD I've done with CD. I've distributed with CD Baby online, and they put my music on iTunes and Rhapsody and Amazon, Napster, and it over the next week it'll be appearing on all of those sites. Right now it's absolutely on iTunes. I just checked it this morning, and anybody with iTunes can go there and purchase the songs. You'll also be able to get it at ronpaulbuttons.com. My good friend Rob Pepe sells Ron Paul, merchandise discounted, and the album is for sale on there as well. Rob is kind of a co-conspirator in this album project with me, and he's selling them at Ron Paul Buttons, and you can get them at my shows, and or you can and there are some people out there that have been getting in touch with me that are not like internet savvy and don't use credit cards online, and they can always send me a money order, and we'll ship them to them.
So if I went on Google and just Google Jordan, Jordan Page, Page, Jordan Page, CD Baby or Jordan Page Liberty, I'm hopefully getting something, right?
You're going to get a lot of links, absolutely.
Well, that's because your first songs batch, we had that, in your first album. What was the name of your first album?
That was the Revolution EP. I mean, before Revolution EP was the Book of Life, and I put that out in 2005, and that was before I even woke up to what was going on. That was just a collection of songs that were chapters of my life. But end of 2006 is when I really started to wake up, when I wrote Pendulum, and Pendulum spawned all the songs that were on the Revolution EP.
Now, Pendulum had a big impact on me. I mean, there's lines in there I can't not tear up, and this is what we knew would be a sign of what was to come. If you could have a songs, the passion, the emotion behind what's coming, because every time we talk to Jordan, we are closer to the realization in popular culture of what's coming, and you have somebody as a songwriter ready to tell us.